Okay, so this is from May, June 2021. Let me just pull that question paper up so we can have some context to work with. On the left, we have the summary that this person has created. All right, so just some very, very, very quick and general expectations for summary writing. You need to be writing down your 5 main points from the passage. So this is correct, right? June 21, June 21. Okay, good. So we're at the correct passage. You need to write down your 5 main points. So you have to read the passage, analyze well, figure out what the passage is about, and find 5 main points. Now, some passages will have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points that could be considered main points. You just need to find 5 main points. So you're gonna get 5 marks just for listing those 5 points. Giveaway marks, guys. These are 5 free marks. They're not checking your ability to write or understand or comprehend, just your ability to find the 5 main points. They get 5 points. So we have here, this person would have gotten 5 points if these are actually main points. I haven't looked at them yet. And then for the summary itself, just looking at this summary is way too short. This is 54 words. Your summary will be the remaining 20 points for a total of 25 marks. So the summary word limit is 120. You can use 120 words. What this means is you need to be going as close to 120 words as possible. They give you 120 words as a word limit because that is really what it takes to write a proper summary. So let me just do just a little bit of math for you guys. Most of these passages here, let me just check this one. Most of these passages are between 350 to 400 words that you will need to summarize. All right. Now, the summary is 120 words. So it means you're going to be eliminating 2/3 of this. So for every 3 sentences you see here, only 1 will make it into your summary. In your own words, of course. Anyhow, let's see. You guys can read this passage quickly. Seeing that we are kind of pressed for time and I want to look at several answers, I'm not sure if we should actually read everything in detail, or I'll quickly read this passage and then I'll ascertain whether or not these would count as main points, and then I'll try to show you what would be perhaps a close to perfect summary. Could you bring it up more, sir? I think my picture is in the way. Okay, no, that should be a little better. All right, so first, let's look at the passage here. The need to belong is a natural aspect of human development, forming the building blocks for our relationships, our families, and communities. The long-term effect of interaction with these familiar persons allows us to deepen connections and develop intimate understanding of each other. Such understanding is intimate because we care about, respond to, and understand each other. In time, we surround ourselves with a community of people, and we manage our connections with these people who share our lives by adopting different roles: partner, child, aunt, neighbor, employer, for instance. We trust them because we have shared experiences. We have reached a point where we know who and what they are. They know us, and we are comfortable in their company. There's a marked difference between the intimacy described above and the type of relationships we have with celebrities. So this is actually a critical line because we're actually now getting into what the passage is all about. So all of this up here, maybe we're only able to find one real point, because this is actually the beginning of the real passage here. The explosion of the internet and cable TV has created a difference in the way we understand people. We're now exposed to the celebrity in different stages. So this is the title here. When you see the title, look out for points that will relate directly to the title. This is a hint as to what might count as a main point. So we're just getting into celebrity here. We're now exposed to the celebrity in different stages. The difference is that there is no give and take or growth in such relationships. So we're seeing a contrast between real relationships and celebrity relationships, or our relationships with celebrities. The celebrities remain figments of our imagination, beings whose lives seem exciting and glamorous, who awaken our curiosity, feed off the attention we give, and use it as currency to aid in accumulating fame and fortune. So they are taking us for idiots, basically. In the world of popular or celebrity culture, there's no intimate connection. It is essentially a one-way communication where the focus is lavished on the celebrity. Guys, I hope you're joining the live from a computer and not a phone. Your phone screen might not be big enough to show you everything clearly. The relationship created with the public is a deliberate strategy, manufactured, marketed, and promoted. Celebrity today is about the brand, endorsements, and glamorous lifestyles. The public and media interest is crucial, providing the material which the person needs to become a celebrity. Through sustained media focus, we are influenced to care about them, to support them on their way up, and to help them to maintain their positions once they reach the top. In return, the celebrity provides most persons with an escape from their mundane lives and satisfies their curiosity about persons whose lives have been materially changed beyond their imagination. The celebrity has a public image to maintain, an image which is retouched and photoshopped until it achieves the desired level of perfection, and one that has virtually no bearing on the reality in the world we live in. So if when you're in the exam, you will not be rushing through it as I am. No, obviously I have to rush because of the nature of this session. But what you'll be doing is you'll be making good use of your planning time. So for the summary, you will have perhaps about 40 minutes, I think, to write the summary. That is like the suggested time. You'll be writing 120 words. So most of your time will not necessarily be spent actually writing. You need to plan for about half of the time because you're only writing 120 words. So most of your time will be focused on figuring out what you will actually be writing. So after you read this, you will need to read each paragraph, see if each paragraph connects with what you think is the main topic here. Sometimes an entire paragraph might be relevant. Usually there is one main point per paragraph. There might be two main points in a paragraph. Anyhow, let's see what this person came up with for their summary. Come on. Let's see what this person came up with for their summary. So let's see the 5 main points. It is human. All right, let me remove my image. I think I can remove my image. Okay, it fits nicely here. It is human nature to want to belong to a group. All right, I think this is a main point. The entire first paragraph can be summarized in a sentence like that. As humans, we need to belong to a group. So that sounds good to me. Interaction with people deepens connections and understandings of each other. Okay, we'll get back to whether or not this qualifies as a main point, but for now, it seems good. Remember, there are not exactly 5 main points in a passage. There might be more than 5. You need to choose 5 and make them work together. The media has caused celebrity relationships to be hyped. I would not necessarily say that this is a strong main point. There's a main point to be made about the media and how it sells or promotes celebrity relationships, but we'll see how we can revise this point. There is no intimate connection between the people and the celebrity. All right, that's fine. Celebrities provide persons with an escape from reality. All right. So the actual summary here is too short. Your limit is 120 words, which means you should be writing 110 to 120. If you're writing 54 words, it means you are definitely missing some main points. So let's see what this person wrote. It is human nature to wish to belong to a group. The interaction... so you mean you're going... Well, it's not just the main points for each paragraph because not all paragraphs will have a valid point. Sometimes an entire paragraph is a distraction. And some paragraphs might have multiple main points. So it depends on the passage. But in general, not always, but in general, you can look for at least 1 main point per paragraph. And most of these passages will have about 5 paragraphs anyway. Where were we? Unfortunately, today the media has fantasized about. The media has fantasized. I don't think the media is the one fantasizing about celebrity relationships. All right, so the points here are not bad, but the summary here is bad. I'm not roasting whoever submitted this. We just want to understand what it means to write a proper summary. Now, luckily, I actually wrote a summary on this past paper question. So I'm going to bring up the summary that I wrote, and I'm going to go through why I think it's a good summary. Okay, here we are. Hope it's big enough. This is my answer. And based on the color coding here, these are my main points, my 5 points. So we have one color for each point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's take a look and see if this summary covers the entire passage. And the word count here, 115 words. So if your summary is below 110 words, you might be missing something. If it's above 120, you need to cut something out. So someone is asking if there are 5 main points, connecting them. Yeah, that's basically it. The 5 main points that you would list, you're now going to use those same points and make sure you have a flow. What do we mean by a flow? Each point must lead to the next. It shouldn't sound like just 5 random disconnected points. All right, let's see here. Our ability to forge relationships with others is driven by our instinctive need to belong. This is how I summarize the entire. All right, let me see if I can remove myself. Okay, I'll work with that. This is how I summarize basically the entire first paragraph. Our ability to forge relationships with others is driven by our instinctive need to belong. All right, that's what this whole paragraph is saying. Yeah, the need to belong is a natural aspect of human development, blah blah blah, and this is what causes us to form relationships and all of these things. Next, over time, our intimate connections concretize as we take on different roles. So this is still in paragraph 1, I believe. Gradually, we build trust with others as the mutual familiarity increases through shared experiences. So I found this to be critical to the passage. So we're building the context before we get to the celebrity business, about why we form relationships, how is it connected to human nature, and then we get into the celebrity business. So this would cover, I think, paragraph 1 and maybe bits of paragraph 2. Note how I am paraphrasing everything. It is not good to lift entire chunks of words, entire passages or entire sentences from the summary, from the passage, because that does not show an understanding of the passage. You show that you understand by being able to paraphrase, put things in your own words. So note how I am connecting my points. These do not sound like bullet points. Point 1 directly leads into point 2. However, now we're at a turning point here. So we have A, however, because B is going to be in contrast to A. However, there's a contrast between the aforementioned intimacy, and this is a good way to not, as CSEC Panda's illustration will have it, to not spend too much money. The aforementioned intimacy, instead of saying the intimacy that I mentioned before, or worse, restating that intimacy, the aforementioned, this is a nice word for summaries, because you can make reference to something that you spoke about earlier on with only one word. So you need to learn those words that can combine a whole sentence or a long phrase into just one word, because you're really fighting to stay within that 120 word range. However, blah blah blah. However, there is a contrast between the aforementioned intimacy and that seen within celebrity relationships. In that, so I'm using in that here to explain what I just said. This explanation is critical to understanding what I said a while ago. In that, celebrity relationships are glamorized and commercialized. So I'm using some verbs here that might not have been used here. It says here, these lives seem glamorous and blah, blah, blah. The commercialization, this is talking about the whole point made where the celebrities are making money just off being celebrities. So I condensed all of that in these two words, glamorized and commercialized. All about the hype, all about the money. You need to find ways to summarize chunks of the text and just extrapolate that main point. All right, in that, celebrity relationships are glamorized and commercialized, lacking any real human connection. This is another critical thing. And all of this purple section is really one point. It's one point, but there are different facets to the point. So you might be saying, but if I list 5 main points, that's only maybe 50 words. Maybe one main point is only 10 words. But you're not just restating bullet points. You have to, within the 120 words, flesh out the points and explain the points as much as you can. Of course, I can't go beyond 120 words. All right? These displayed relationships are deliberately fabricated to exploit our desire to escape the monotony of regular life. Let's pause here. I figure that some of you guys are familiar with the passage because you would have been drilling past papers up until now, hopefully. So you can see in this phrase, I've summarized quite a bit of the last paragraph and some of this paragraph here. So these displayed relationships, these celebrity relationships, are deliberately fabricated. And we saw some reference to things like Photoshop. Where do we have it? We say manufactured, deliberate strategy. Instead of just quoting word for word all of these kind of examples, I'll just give you the main point, which is they're deliberately fabricated. They're just made up fantasies. All right? So these displayed relationships are deliberately fabricated to exploit our desire to escape the monotony of regular life. And in turn, all right, this is a good way to show that one thing triggers something else. So you need to learn these linking phrases so you can have smooth transitions from one idea to the next. You don't have a lot of latitude, you only have 120 words. So the more you can utilize those linking phrases and words, the more easily you'll be able to write these summaries. Where was I? These displayed relationships are deliberately fabricated to exploit our desire to escape the monotony of regular life, and in turn benefit the celebrities with wealth and fame. All right, I think my connection lagged a bit, but we're back. So what you can do as we go through, I might show you my own samples, especially of summaries. You can just take a screenshot here, and then later on you'll be able to go through and basically make good use of this sample, because we won't be able to go too deeply on any one paper. All right, so thanks to whoever sent that summary in. At least you gave me a reason to show off this sample here. Let me see what I can look at next. Let me take a look at what this person has. First, let me check the word count. This looks like 186 words. So right off the bat, this is too long. The summary cannot be more than 120 words. So what CSEC might do is just pretend that this part at the end doesn't exist, and they might just stop reading after 120 words. All right, so children who feel worthless and pain or discomfort in negative home environment become bullies. Causes. Children who feel worthless. So this is kind of strange here. Who feel worthless and pain or discomfort. The sentence needs some clarity. in negative home environment becomes bullies and causes them. Okay, I understand what this point is. I guess this point is showing us a cause and effect here, that children who feel pain or who grow up in a negative home environment might become bullies due to that environmental factor. But I'll show you how to rephrase this because I have actually written a summary on this passage. Negative situations in their home can cause a child to develop anger issues or can result in anger issues. So there are ways to make these sentences shorter. I'll show you. In most cases, when a child becomes a victim of bullying, they would resist. So resist to talk about the bullying. Resist is not used properly here, but I'll show you some alternatives, and would isolate them and become. All right. So I see that this summary here has some good points, but two main issues so far. Remember, I'm just giving general feedback. Two main issues. One is too many words. Anything above 120 words will not be read. You might as well stop writing. And the second thing is maybe the student was just rushing to send in the email, but the sentence structures are not very clear, and I'm not sure I'm really understanding what's happening. Anyhow, I'm going to show you a sample on this. Okay, so here we are. So the summary that we just looked at a while ago, two main issues. It's too long, and the sentences just need better flow. But one problem we did not see was lifting words directly from the passage. If you lift words directly from the passage, that's basically an automatic fail, because you're proving to CSEC that I have the ability to write exactly what I see, and we're not testing that ability. We're testing your ability to synthesize information, to understand, to extrapolate, to pick sense out of nonsense sometimes. All right, so the person who sent that in, thank you for sending it in. I could see some points, some valid points. So what I want to do now is basically look at a way in which those same points that you found could be written, perhaps in a way that's easier to read. So maybe I should very briefly look at what this passage is saying for those of you who are not familiar with this passage. Okay. Typically, bullies and their victims share the same characteristic: low self-esteem. Whether they internalize or externalize their feelings determines if they become bullies or victims of bullying. So this, I think, the first couple of lines here, I think, are critical to understanding this passage. So this would count as a main point. Usually, negative situations and events in a child's life can trigger low self-esteem. Externalizing feelings of pain or discomfort or worthlessness, which start at home, can cause some children to become bullies as they seek to control their environment to compensate for their lack of control in the family. For instance, and once you see any evidence that an example is coming up, you can just take your red pen, whatever color pen you have, and start crossing out. Because you should not be including any examples in your summary. You should not be including any examples in your summary. So I can't see the words from the sample. I hope it's a little better. I hope it's a little better now. Is it better? Can you see the words from the sample? I think this is as big as it gets. As a result, all right, so let's look at my sample here. And if you're familiar with the passage, you should easily be able to trace where these points are coming from. If you're seeing this passage for the first time, we're rushing here, so take a screenshot, and maybe later on you can go through in more detail and connect the points. So the first point here, low self-esteem, which is usually triggered by negative childhood experiences, can lead to one, becoming either a bully or a victim of bullying. So all of this here can be found. Basically, this is summarizing the first paragraph. This is basically summarizing the first paragraph. This whole paragraph is saying this is how bullies are formed. Right? Low self-esteem is usually triggered by childhood experience, negative childhood experiences. And this can lead to one of two things. You can either become a bully due to that problem, or you can become a person who is a victim of bullying. So make sure that you're able to eliminate the examples and the illustrations and just get around the wordiness, because CSEC will give you some wordy passages. And usually there's not more than 1 point to be found in a paragraph. Maybe 2, usually 1. The next point here, as we'll see, I think in the next 2 paragraphs, those who externalize their negative feelings may become bullies, as their sense of powerlessness and frustration lead them to hurting others. Conversely, so words like these are good to use to show a contrast, to show that you're going in the opposite direction. Conversely, children who internalize such feelings may become depressed and withdrawn. Their lack of self-worth makes them susceptible to bullying. Note how I am not lifting words from this passage. I'm paraphrasing everything. In contrast, so this shows that I'm going to an opposing point again. Children with high self-esteem are resilient toward bullying. So here we have actually reached paragraph 3. That's where we are here. In contrast, children with high self-esteem are resistant to bullying, resistant toward bullying. And I think that summarizes basically this entire paragraph here. Bullies maintain control provided they can instill negative feelings into their victims. All right, we can see that in this paragraph here. It tells us about how the bullies are able to maintain control. It's just about their ability to use negative language to affect others. So one way in which I can figure out what this thing is saying, before I even write a point, summarize, paraphrase each paragraph in your own mind. Make sure you understand what the paragraph is saying. Then you'll be able to write the point. And finally here, a victim can be empowered to counteract bullying and regain their self-esteem if they recognize the power of words and are able to respond to bullies with more affable language. And this is seen near the end of the extract. So what I want you guys to do, I think how we can make the most out of these summary samples, take a screenshot with the CSEC passage and my sample side by side. Take a screenshot. Later on, if you're seeing the passage for the first time, you can go through paragraph by paragraph and see if you agree that these are actually the main points. This summary is 116 words. How do you know you're writing the main point? This is actually not a very easy question to answer, but what you need to do is first figure out what the entire passage is about. So looking at this passage, just at a glance, this passage seems to be about bullying and maybe how people become bullies or victims of bullying. So if you see a point that is not connected to that main central theme, it's not a main point. That is it. If you see a point that is not connected to that central thing, you can eliminate it. But first you need to figure out what that central thing is. What do most of the paragraphs talk about? Usually the first and last paragraphs will contain critical points, but this is not always the case. I've seen passages where the entire first paragraph is foolishness. The entire first paragraph can be thrown into the bin. I've seen those passages. So you can't assume that paragraph 1 will contain the main point, or paragraph 5. You have to just read all the paragraphs and see, what do I see being repeated throughout the extract? What am I seeing examples of? You will not be writing the examples in the summary, but what are the examples pointing to? That is the thing you need to write. Do you paraphrase the main points found or write it directly from? Well, for the main points, I suggest you paraphrase when you're writing the main points. Reason: if you have the 5 main points already paraphrased, then you've done 50% of your work. You've done 50% of the work, because all you will need to do is to just rewrite those same main points because you've already paraphrased them, flesh them out if you have words to spare, and connect them using transitions. So if you spend 20 minutes to paraphrase the main points and write them down as a 5 points, then writing the actual summary will be very easy, because all you will need to do is to ensure that the points connect. All right, let's look at how these points here are connecting. All right, because listing the main points isn't necessarily the hard part. Maybe what some of you guys might find difficult is, how do I make sure it's not sounding like bullet points? So let's take a look at this paragraph here. Low self-esteem, which is usually triggered by negative childhood experiences, can lead to one becoming either a bully or a victim of bullying. So the next point here must flow from this point. So I can't just talk about something random or disconnected in the next point. Otherwise, I'm going to be losing marks for coherence. So look at this next point and see how it expands, or how it builds on the previous point. Those who externalize, so I just said here that negative childhood experiences can lead to one becoming a bully or a victim of bullying. Look at the next part, the next sentence. Those who externalize their negative feelings may become bullies. So I am explaining how this point here basically filters into something else. I'm not just writing another random bullet point. So here I'm basically building on this. So I said, based on the negative situation, you might become either a bully or a victim. In the next line, what I'm saying here is, if you externalize your negative feelings, if you push those negative feelings out into the world, that's when you become a bully. Why? Your sense of powerlessness and frustration lead you to hurt others. You feel powerless, you feel as if you can't do anything, and you take that out on those around you. Conversely, because I'm now looking at the other side, the flip side of the coin, those who internalize the feelings. So we have the same negative experience. Some people take an outward approach and bully others. Some take an inward approach and become bullied by others. So this point flows into this point. Now look at how my third point is connected now to the second point. In contrast, so already there's a relationship established between this green point and this blue point. I am now showing a contrast, so it's a relationship. All of your points must be showing some kind of relationship with the point before. So this point, what is the relationship? It is explaining this one. This point, it is contrasting with this one. In contrast, children with high self-esteem are resilient toward bullying. So I just talked about the children who internalize the feelings and become depressed and victims. The contrast is, if you have a high self-esteem, bullying will not affect you. Now look at the next point here. I'm talking about how some people are resistant to bullying. The next point is now talking about how bullies actually exert their power. And then finally, we have more connection here. A victim can be empowered. So we talked about the victims. We talked about those who can fight against bullying. We talk about how the bullies bully, basically the method of bullying, and then we talk about how the victims can counteract bullying. So all of the points are connected. If you have a point that is not connected to anything, maybe it's not a main point and it doesn't belong in the summary. So I could have chosen other points for this summary, but I chose 5 points that I could connect with transitional words and phrases. 5 points that flow naturally. All right, let's see if there's another summary here. So let's just try to remember that passage, and I'll just look at this just to see if the points are flowing. All right. The deep connections we share with our families, communities, and those close to us is starkly contrasted to the intimacy or lack thereof between us and celebrities. All right. So this here is a nice point. This is a nice point. The only critique I would have is it's a little bit too fancy. They might be saying, but sir, teachers say we should use impressive vocabulary. In a summary, it's really about extracting the juice, the substance. We don't need the fluff. So here, yeah, I saw some stories submitted. So I might just touch on some general feedback. I might not be able to read each story here. I think I did not go about this live in the most efficient way. Perhaps I should have stipulated particular summaries and particular prompts for you guys to respond to, because now we're kind of all over the place. Someone is saying, what if your vocabulary is low? How can you shorten the summary? Shorten the summary to the word limit. I'm not sure what this question means. Please explain this question, Rajay. In the meantime, let's take a look here. The deep connections we share with our families, communities, and those close to us is starkly contrasted to the intimacy or lack thereof between us and celebrities. So we could make this sentence a little bit more condensed. Yeah. As we saw in the sample. The explosion of the internet and cable TV. So we're basically seeing internet and cable TV. These could be considered examples of media or social media or something else. So whenever you find yourself listing things, try to think about what broad group these things are a part of and write the name of the broad group. So the explosion of the internet and cable TV has differentiated the way we understand people, as it allows us to be exposed to a world that is clouded with figments of glamour and excitement that these celebrities encapsulate. All right. I'm seeing good points, but I'm wondering if the language is a bit too fluffy. This adds the factor of curiosity, which feeds the fame of these celebrities. Our interactions with celebrities are limited and is a perdurable exchange as the celebrity gains our support, and in turn, the celebrity provides an escape from their mundane lives. A little bit ambiguous because the celebrities are not escaping from their own lives, so we could make it a little bit clearer. The celebrity is a formulated image of perfection. I think we're kind of repeating ourselves here. Formulated image of perfection, completely detached from reality, kind of saying the same thing. We have your figments of glamour and excitement, kind of saying the same thing. So this here, we're kind of seeing some fairly okay development of the points, but it's a little bit repetitive, and I think we missed including some main points because we spent too many words on what might just be 2 or 3 points here, really. But this is not a bad attempt. Not a bad attempt. All right, let's see if we can find more summaries. All right, so let's see what this person's main points are. The need to belong is a natural aspect of human development, forming the building blocks for our relationships, our families, and communities. This is our main point. I think that's excellent. Our life is surrounded by a community of people where trust is gained because we know each other and feel comfortable in their company. Okay, this could be a main point. Someone asks if I can share the document with the summaries. At the end of the live, I'll talk about sharing some resources. So don't worry too much about that for now. The internet and cable have an impact on the way we understand people. Celebrity remain. So for this point here, we could make it clearer in that we're telling the examiner, we're saying that the internet and cable have an impact, but just tell us what the impact is. Tell us what the impact is. Yes, Panda, this is some. If I could write like this, man, maybe I wouldn't need to type everything. I have to stick to typing because my handwriting is illegible. I was meant to be a doctor, perhaps. The effects of abiding interaction with celebrity. Strange wording here. Allows to widen our connection. Effects of abiding. All right, this point here, I'm not clear on what this point is saying. Perhaps you wouldn't get a full mark for this point here, just based on my reading of the passage. But you do have some good structure going on in terms of you have gotten a couple of excellent points. But let me see what your actual, come on, what's happening? Let's see what your actual summary looks like. All right, the nature of belonging is is incumbent to human development and therefore acts as the foundation for all relationships. Impressive. They are sustained. Also, I guess the relationships. They are sustained through trust, understanding, and mutual experiences. Hence, results in a profound intimacy between individuals. Okay. Contrastingly, I guess that's a better way of saying in contrast, because this is only one word. Nice. Some intimacy is not achieved. Such intimacy is not achieved through celebrity relationships. Our relationships with celebrities are meaningless, void, and they lack substance. So we're saying the same thing here, and here. So we could eliminate the repetition and just go with whichever seems to be the best way of expressing it. We see them from afar and there is no proximity. So this and this is basically saying the same thing as with intimate persons in our lives. So with this last half of the summary, we started to repeat ourselves a bit. They feed our curiosity and lingering imaginations and benefit through their growth of prosperity, of popularity and prosperity. All right, this is a good attempt at a summary, to be honest. We just want to stay away from repeating too much. All right, guess what, guys? Let me just give you some general tips for the story writing, and then what I'll do is I'll respond to your emails later on. I'll respond to your individual stories. All right, so that's how I'm going to do it. So for the narrative writing, all right, you can just take some notes. I won't be showing you guys a PowerPoint or anything. We're being very, very casual here. For the narrative writing, CSEC is basically, in my experience, looking at two things. They're looking at your ability to structure a story in that you have a clear beginning, all right? You set the stage, you have a clear middle, we have some conflict going on, you have a clear end, you have a resolution. So if your story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that's a good thing. The other thing CSEC is looking for is your ability to use narrative style sentence types. What I mean is your story needs to have. So CSEC doesn't really care about what your story is about. I know in the exam you might be so caught up in how am I going to use this prompt to build a good story. Like, the content of the story is not super important. What's important is how you write the story. So if you write a story about bananas taking over the world, if you have description, if you have well-written dialogue, if you have good paragraphing, and if your story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that's really what the important thing is. As for the prompt, you will be choosing from either a picture prompt or a sentence prompt. My advice is go into the exam with a couple of story ideas. All right, go into the exam with a couple of short story ideas, and perhaps, just perhaps, you might be able to fit one of your ideas around one of the prompts. Yeah. So if you go into the exam with no ideas in mind, you might find yourself taking 5-10 minutes just to think of an idea. Yeah. So go into the exam with a couple of story ideas, and probably one of the prompts you see, you'll be able to actually build a story, or fit your pre-built story around that prompt. You go into the exam and you start writing the story without planning, your story might end up being 1,000 words, and you will not have time to write 1,000 words. So you're going to run out of time while you're in the middle of the story. So it's good to actually plan your story, even if you can plan a story before the exam, because you have no idea what prompt you're going to see. You're lucky if you see a prompt where you have a pre-made story that you can use for the prompt. But if you see a prompt where you just cannot, that you just cannot build a pre-made story around the prompt, then spend about 5 minutes to plan your story events. What happens in the beginning? What is the problem? What is the conflict? And what happens at the end? So perhaps by now some stories from you guys have reached my email. You can keep sending the work in, and I'll try to respond before the exam. So as a story, you want your story to strike a balance, in terms of you have some narrative writing going on, you're narrating, you have some dialogue going on, you have some action going on. All right, I've seen many CSEC stories with no action, no dialogue, just narration. What you want to do is you want to show the examiner that you understand the different elements of a story, the different types of sentences that can be used. So you can narrate some parts, we have dialogue coming in, and of course, just you can do a quick Google on the rules of writing dialogue, new paragraph, quotation marks, all that stuff. So you want your story to show off the different kinds of sentences: dialogue sentences, narrative sentences, descriptive sentences, and ensure your story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So something happens in the beginning, an event or a conflict is triggered, and then at the end there's some resolution to the conflict. I wish I had organized the live in a more efficient way to get to more of you guys' work, but I think I should call it a night. No, but what I'll do is I'll keep responding to your emails, sending the emails, and I'll take a look and see what's up. As for paper one, let's see this question quickly. When should I start a new paragraph, and how do I format dialogue? Well, you start a new paragraph when you're moving to a new scene or a new idea, and you also jump to a new paragraph whenever a new speaker is speaking. New line, indent for dialogue. Of course, all dialogue sentences will be within quotation marks. Someone says, try to make your short story interesting. Yeah, try to make it interesting. And a good way to make your story interesting is to, instead of just narrating or telling what is happening, show us instead. All right, action is good. We need action. So instead of saying Johnny was sad, what you can do is give us a sentence in which we can see Johnny's tears. His tears roll down his face. That's a bit better, because now you're not just telling us, you're showing us. So a good story will paint pictures in the reader's mind and allow the reader to be able to imagine the scenes. So whatever you want to tell us, instead of just telling us, show us what's happening. Show us what the characters are going through. Show us what they're feeling, instead of telling us. Let's see what this tip is here. 1 minute 10 words, 40 minutes 400 words. Yeah, that's some good math, but we have to factor in planning as well. Sometimes if you plan for 5 minutes, you cut your writing time in half, because you will know exactly what you'll be writing. I remember my short story for my CSEC exam. That was about I don't know 12 or so years ago. I wrote at least 2,000 words. That was terrible. Oh gosh, they gave me a blind maybe because I still got a great score. But my story was way too long because I went in there with ideas, but I didn't go into the exam with a plan. Have to go in there with a plan. Have to go in with a plan. Yeah. Yes, I live in Japan. I live in Japan. So how do you access the resources? All you have to do, guys, check back. I'll make a community post in a couple of hours. I'll make a community post. So if you're subscribed to my channel, you will see the community posts, you will see the updates, you will see anything I post, anything I between now and the exam, I will not be able to make any videos or do any more lives, but I'll be able to make posts and post links and post resources. So if you're subscribed, you'll be able to see those resources. Yeah. Someone said the English B was not bad. I hope it wasn't bad. I hope it wasn't bad. Yeah, my pleasure. I wish I could have done more in terms of English A, but I was just focused on English B, and mainly on the poetry section. Only on the poetry section. Next year I might be able to cover a broader range. Anyhow, guys, I won't keep you here any longer. What I want you to do, oh, you have accounts tomorrow. Well, good luck, Coffee. Coffee, you've been a good sport. You've been in, I think, all of my live sessions, and you've commented on perhaps all of my videos. So thank you so much. Good luck in your exams. I'll try to get back to you guys' emails as much as possible. I might be able to give you detailed feedback, or I might be able to just give you general feedback. I'll see. Hopefully, I can give you some feedback. Yeah. So that's it. By the way, for paper one, many of you guys might have already taken the paper one marathon. For those of you who have not yet watched that marathon video, you need to watch that video. That marathon video, it's 5 straight past papers, 300 questions with answers and explanations. So I think in terms of paper one, you need to watch that video, attempt the questions, and you can definitely look out for some repeat questions because CSEC tends to repeat their questions. Well, I guess it's up to us to find what the main points are. Sometimes it's not so easy to spot the main points, but when it comes to summary, go with your gut, go with a gut feeling. If you're reading the passage and you're seeing an idea being repeated, perhaps you're seeing a word or a theme being repeated throughout, then that might very well be the main idea. And I have so many notes on summary writing, but I'm not sure if it's gonna be information overload because I have tons of notes on how to approach summary writing. But what I'll do is I'll try to make some community posts between now and tomorrow, within the next 24 hours. I'll try to make a community post for each section, right? So for summary writing, I'll try to just give you guys a format in how you can plan the summary, how you can manage the time, and how you can identify the points and what things to eliminate from your summary. Because the summary is largely about what not to write. And for the narrative writing, I'll just remind you guys of basically the kinds of sentences that CSEC might be expecting. Those of you guys who dominated the English B exam, for those of you guys who did your best, congratulations. I saw your hard work in how you were consuming the videos and asking questions, making comments. Yeah. That is very true, Panda. So yeah, wait for the posts. I'll be making some posts within a couple of hours, within 24 hours. I'll release some posts and post some links to some resources for you guys. Oh yes, Abigail, that is the truth right there. Especially subscribe, because if you're not subscribed, you're not going to see the community posts. And good luck with your exams. Well, that's it. That's it.